Hello everyone and welcome to the third devlog for this untitled farming idle game that I'm working on. It's been quite a while since the last one and a lot of changes has happened, so I don't want to waste any of your time. Let's just get straight into it. I want to start off by talking about the biggest change the game has had and also the biggest problem. I think the biggest problem that the game has had is just simply how it looks. If we head on into ASE Sprite, I have this test scene here where I can just see what everything looks like together. So we got some trees, the ground, and a carrot farm. I don't really think this looks too good, the carrot farm being probably the best thing here, but nothing really makes sense together. Like the trees have a different art style to the carrots and the ground and so on, and I just think it looks awful. The colors are not the greatest either. This is something I knew I had to change, but yeah, I never really had the motivation to do so. Until now, and I want to start off by saying I'm no artist, but I've spent a significant amount of time reworking the game and how it looks, and here it is. This is a sneak peek of what the game looks like now. There's a lot to look at. We've got a lot more farms added to the game, we've got new trees, we've got clouds, and even a new player. Now, obviously this is only drawn up and not in the game just yet, so that's something I'll have to do. But I spent a good 3 or so days just drawing out farms with a bit of help, set up a color palette, and just really trying to make the game look better, and I must say, I am extremely happy with how it looks right now. Besides the new player models, as you can see, there are many new farms, and I just want to take a little moment to go through them with you. We're just going to talk about them from left to right, starting off with the grapes here. I really like how they turned out. The contrast of the pink on the purple looks pretty good, but I must say I might change it in the future. Not my finest work. Next up is the cauliflower. It looks pretty good if you ask me. I didn't really know how else to draw it. Might receive changes. One of my favorites, the corn. I just really like this. I don't know why. We've got the new potatoes here. I know that potatoes don't really show like the actual potato part whenever they grow, but I needed a way to let the player know that this is a potato plant, so therefore it's sticking out of the ground a bit. I hope people are okay with that. Next up is the tomato plant. Again, not super happy with this, but I think it works for now. The carrot has received some changes. I just think whilst drawing the new crops that the carrot was way too thick, so thinned it out a bit and changed the top part as well. Next up is the aubergine, also known as the eggplant. I'm not really sure what word to use just yet. This is the whole UK-US debate. Whatever I guess people are more familiar with. I'm really happy with this one though. And finally, we just have an onion. I didn't really know how else to introduce this guy. He's just an onion. That is pretty much it for the new changes. Obviously, there's a new player and some clouds and trees. But overall, I'm super happy with how the game looks so far. I think we've got the right amount of crops to start off with, and I will of course be adding more in the future. So if you have any suggestions on what to do, please let me know. I don't want to add anything that grows on trees and so on, because it has to fit in the little dirt pile with the sign. But yeah, I would love to add more things based on your suggestions. Also, finally, can you please stop yelling at me for the player not fitting with the crops? I knew that. I mentioned it twice, but people just kept mentioning it. So yeah, look, he matches pixel-wise. It's good. Moving on, before we head on in and add the new art to the game, I just quickly wanted to announce that the player isn't final, and it won't be the only character you get to play. So although this is the mushroom, you might be able to change it in the future whenever you create your farm. So you're not like locked with this mushroom thing in case you don't like it. There will be other ones you get to choose from as well, but that's going to come later on throughout development. I think for now though, it's time to move on into the engine and add all the new stuff to it. I may or may not have been a bit busy lately, you know, working on super important stuff. Definitely not just chopping down trees all the time. In my defense though, most of the time it actually looks more like this. Jokes aside, I have actually added all of the new farms and art into the game. As you can see, we've got potatoes, carrots, onions, and tomatoes right here. I would have placed down the other ones, but I cannot actually afford them. As you can see, there is gold in the game now, and you need gold to place down farms and buy collectors. Currently, everything but the walking animation for the player is there, so the player currently just slides along. But if the player does go up to a crop and harvest it, it will give some money now, and there's a little bit of text coming up just to show how much you got. None of this has been balanced yet, so that is why most of it gives like 4 or 2 and so on. Only the potato has its starting value, which is just 10. I really like how the clouds move whenever the player is moving, so you can see they kind of follow, but not really. I need to make it so that they slide from right to left or something, so that they're not super static, but I really like how they look right now. Another thing I have done is changed how the farms work once again. So in the last episode I explained that whenever a farm doesn't have any crops on it, it will just grow and then both of the crops will appear, and then when you've harvested both, the farm can grow again. Now, I didn't really like the approach of it, and with the next change I'm going to talk about, it made it a bit hard, and again I'll get into that. So now the different crops actually work individually. So if I was to go up and collect these ones, previously these could never grow back until I harvest the other ones. But now they work individually, meaning that eventually the crop will just spawn again, which I'm really happy with. There we go, potato just appeared even though I hadn't harvested this thing ever. Same with the carrot. Good timing. I definitely think this makes the game feel a lot less unfair and more accepting of whether or not you actually remember to collect something. It also means that if your collectors forget about a crop, the farm isn't completely locked, and I actually really like that. Such as this scenario here. The tomato plant next to it can still grow even though a farm or a collector hasn't gotten to it yet. Wow, my timing's on point, it literally just happened. Of course, the font of the text and so on will change in the future, and currently the carrots can collect every crop. That's going to be restricted to when I add the other collectors. Now, I mentioned that having individual farms would make it really hard for another change, and in order to showcase you what that is, I actually need to open up a different project. This project does look relatively empty, but if I go ahead and hit play, we should see that some info will load up, such as a name, some health, and just some random numbers here. This is because I spent a while building a save system. I wanted to make a save system that could save a lot of kind of data, such as vectors and so on, which will just make it super easy to deal with saving the game in the future. I initially started saving things like farm position and how much gold the player had and so on, when I realized that I wasn't really approaching it really well. I needed to design it more, and the save system needed to be able to do more than what it could. So I spent a while building this system. Currently we can remove health, change the name a bit, and just click this button a few times, and if I go ahead and hit save, then when I restart the game it should work. There we go. I can also go ahead and change the profile, let's say to 1 here, and then change the name, add some health, maybe click the button a few times, hit save, and then if I go ahead and hit play, it should come up with this one. But now I can actually load between different profiles, which means we can have different player saves. Of course, it loading up the first save was not a good idea because the last one I used was the second one. But it's really nice that the system is able to save a lot of different values and so on, can pretty much do anything, and that you can have multiple saves. It doesn't look like a lot in here, but trust me, it's going to help a lot when I want to save the location of farms, how much gold is there, the achievements the player has, and so on. I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time designing how I want to approach that before I go ahead and do it. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with a big mess, and I'm just going to be at the exact same point as I was before, where something isn't doable. That's also a reason to why I said things weren't working well with the farms. Let's take the potato farm, for instance. So previously, as I said, whenever the farm was able to grow, it would just have 2 crops appear. The farm actually never knew anything about where the crops were and so on. It just knew that there were 2 crops, and that's it. And then it would also know when there was 1 or 0. It just checked the child count of these 2 here. Now the problem came when I loaded the game up, because I couldn't save this one saying it was on the left side because there was no indication of it. And the same with this one. All I knew is how many crops there were. So obviously for the approach with 2 crops, it would be easy. But say I harvested 1 and left, how would I know that the one that's left behind is on the right hand side? I had no indication of doing that, therefore saving the data was just not great. And that's why I decided to make the crops individual, so that now I know when a crop's on the left side, and I know when a crop is on the right side. Not only do I like the change better in terms of gameplay, but I also just know it's going to be easier to save. So yeah, maybe I'll start saving and loading the game in the next episode, but for now, I'm really happy that I managed to build the entire save system, and it's just going to make my life way easier. That is going to be everything for this devlog. If you did enjoy it, then make sure to leave a like. It really does help out with the YouTube algorithm. I think in the next devlog, I'm definitely going to solve a big issues that I've left unnoticed, and that is the UI. It's not the greatest right now, so definitely going to try and fix that one. Other than that, if you really do want to support me, I do have a Patreon. I want to say thank you for my first ever Patreon. Woo! I'm super excited to see what's going to happen next to this game. I have some ideas, but I also want to get some feedback. I'm probably going to address that in the next video. Anyway, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.